Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Erin. Today I wanted to go ahead and do a little video on drugstore sponges. I know I've been promising this one forever, but I finally feel like I have true feelings about the 6 sponges that I've been trying out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So some of these sponges are dirty because I have used them this week and I have not washed them yet. Now I'm the type of person where I use a sponge once and then I wash it. I don't like reusing these sponges over and over again, mainly because I do use my sponges to put on powder as well, and so I feel like if I go back in with foundation the next day, once powder's been on the sponge, I don't think it'll perform the same. Now some of these are a little bit wet, so they're bigger than what they are when they're dry. Some of these are completely dry, and so I'm not necessarily doing a comparison of how big they get, but how I feel they apply my makeup. And so the first one I have is this one from Eco Tools, and this is their regular sponge. They have a smaller yellow one that is like their concealer sponge. I have that one, but I don't really dirty up another sponge just for concealer because I feel like this point here does a really good job of getting underneath my under eyes. I really like this sponge. This is actually one of my favorite ones, and maybe at the end I'll do like a ranking of like 1 to 6 how I feel about these, but this is up there. I do apply my foundation with the rounded side of this sponge, and what I like about this sponge is it has a cut end here and a cut end here. So I use the smaller cut end to go ahead and blend out my concealer underneath my eyes, and then I use this bigger cut end a lot of times for powder. And so when I do go to powder my under eye, I will dip this bigger side into the powder and then set my under eyes. This also gives a nice flat edge to go ahead and set the rest of your face. I really enjoy this one. It is a little bit beat up, so it will rip a little bit as you wash it. I've probably had this for 3 or 4 months and washed it quite a lot. It does wash very nicely, it doesn't stain, and so I will keep repurchasing this sponge. Our next one is the regular Real Techniques sponge. I do really enjoy this one too. This has a very different shape than a lot of the other ones. I do blend my foundation with this pointed flatter side of the sponge. I do use the flatter side to blend out my concealer and also set with powder. This one gets very nice and squishy. It's not too dense. I really enjoy this one also, but if I had to pick between these two, I like how this one is a little bit more squishy and soft, and so I do like the Eco Tools over the Real Techniques if you're looking at just comparing these two. Our next one is the sponge from Morphe that I picked up in my last Ulta haul, and I actually used this one today. I love this sponge. This sponge was $7 at Ulta, and it's amazing. It does have a very similar shape to these two sponges here. It's not necessarily that beauty blender shape, but it's more of that, you know, it dips in the, this almost reminds me of like those Russian stacking dolls. It almost is that kind of shape. I do blend out my foundation with this side of the base of this sponge, and then I use the pointed side to do my concealer, and I set powder with both this side and this side. This is a very dense foam, but it's also extremely squishy. Now the thing about this one that I really enjoy is that it almost has a little dense center to it that gives you that spring back. And so I've really been enjoying this one, and the next time I'm at Ulta, I will be picking up another one of these. Next we have the Flower Beauty sponge, and this one is not wet at all. This is just the size it is when it's dry. This one blows up a whole bunch, and this one is very soft, very squishy. Now what I've noticed about this one, if you look at all of these sponges, they almost have pores to them, and that's how they soak up the water, that's how they get bigger. This one has very big pores. So when I'm applying my foundation with this sponge, which I apply it with this flat bottom part, I almost feel that it leaves a little bit of texture on my foundation because the pores are so large. If you think about if you were to blend your foundation out with like a regular kitchen sponge, the larger holes or pores in that sponge would leave a little bit of texture. This, I think, does that. And it's not necessarily like it breaks down with use. I just think that this is a more, I don't even know the correct word for it, but just it's not as dense as some of the other sponges. Also, the cut of it is a little strange. How, you know, some of these other ones that are cut like that, they come to this nice point. This one just has this little tiny flat side right here, and then it's more rounded. So I have a harder time getting into the corners of my eyes, getting into the corners of my nose with this sponge and just covering everything that I need to cover. So I like this because of how soft it is, but will I be repurchasing another one of the Flower Beauty sponges? I don't believe so. Plus, these are a little bit pricey, so I don't think that I will be purchasing any more of these because I have better options out there. Next is this sponge from NYX, and this one is just very interesting in its shape. So the dome at the bottom almost has a flatness to it, and then it has this nice side here, this side here, and then this little jagged part. Now, I don't like this sponge, and I bought this sponge because Emily Noel was raving about it, and this is like her favorite sponge right now. But this sponge is too dense. It doesn't blow up as much, and it's not as soft. And so when I'm using it to apply foundation, I just feel like it takes longer for me to blend everything out, and I don't like the way it blends because of how hard it is. Also, I'm not crazy about the shape. I mean, I understand like this one kind of has that two-sided slanted shape, and this one has that slanted shape, but this one just is not appealing to me. And because, again, how firm it is, when I'm trying to blend out my under eye and I just want that slightest little bounce, this just, it takes product away. I don't like this, and I think this one goes for $9 or $10, and so this is just, I used it like 4 times just to try it out, and I hated it every single time that I ended up having to take another sponge and touch my foundation up. So this one is just going to have to be a pass for me. Now, if you love really dense sponges and that's your thing, if you want your sponge to not have as much give or bounce, then this is going to be the sponge for you. And our last one is the Loreal sponge. Now, I love these. I did a video where I actually cut one in half, and I've really been enjoying that as well. But I did bust out a new one that is whole, and I've been using this again just to kind of refresh my mind on what the whole one feels like, because I've been using the ones that have been cut in half for so long. So I really do enjoy this sponge. I almost wish that it came to a little bit more of a point to really get into those corners of my eyes, but it is very easy to pinch in and get that area. This does have that rounded bottom, and I do use that bottom part to go ahead and apply my foundation. This one is a more dense sponge as far as the pores are smaller on it, and so I do really enjoy using this one. I love this sponge. I will keep rebuying these, but let me go ahead and lay these back out and order them from like best to worst. All right, so my number 6 sponge, which I will not be repurchasing anymore, and I'm probably gonna just declutter this, is the NYX sponge. I mean, you can tell by my review that I'm not a big fan of this one. And then the next is the Flower Beauty sponge. Just the pores on this one and the application that it gives me, I'm not really enjoying it anymore. And actually, I have 2 of these sponges, so once they go kaput, I am not going to be repurchasing the Flower Beauty sponge unless they redo the formula of the actual foam. But yes, that is number 5. Number 4 is going to be the Real Technique sponge. I do really enjoy this one, but again, the other ones I like more. Will I continue to repurchase this one? Because I think these are $5 a piece, $6 a piece. For the price, they're absolutely amazing. They wash wonderfully. I love them. So this one absolutely is a good go-to, but it's not my number 1 sponge. Number 3 is our L'Oreal sponge. I really enjoy this. I actually have another one in backup already for when this one needs to be retired. It cleans well. It just applies that foundation beautifully. So I really, really enjoy this one, and I highly recommend it. Number 2 is going to be the Eco Tool sponge. I just love how soft this gets and the give that it has. I love these contours. They just get perfectly in everywhere I need them to get. And so I will continue to repurchase this sponge as well. And my number 1 sponge that I'm loving right now is this Morphe sponge. It is just It's the right density. The pores of the foam are like non-existent. And so like it just leaves a flawless finish on the skin. I actually used this today to put my makeup on, and it's flawless. I love, love, love this sponge. If I had to only buy one drugstore sponge for the rest of time, it would be this one. And so if you have an Ulta by You that sells Morphe in store, go ahead and pick one of these up. They do have another sponge, which is also very highly rated on the Ulta website, but the store that I went to was completely out of them. So I want to pick up that sponge too to see what the different shape or different feel is to it. But this is just their regular, almost like bullet shaped sponge. It's amazing. Try it out. It's amazing. I hope you enjoyed my little review of these 6 drugstore sponges. Leave me a comment down below if there's a drugstore sponge that I didn't talk about that you are absolutely loving. If you found this video helpful or like this style of video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on new videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!